Angular 5 features and changes. The new version of the popular Angular framework is out. Angular 5 was released on November 1, 2017 with cool new features and improvements. But before we discuss these changes, we have to be reminded about a thing called SemVer or Semantic Versioning. Since the Angular framework is using the Semantic Versioning, the major version will always be incremented if there are any changes that breaks the current API. This does not mean that the latest Angular 5 is a total rewrite of Angular 4 or Angular 2. It only means that there are few specific code changes that breaks the current API implementation. So, just to be clear, Angular 5 is almost the same with Angular 2 or Angular 4, and it's not a total rewrite. Okay, now that we had sorted that one out, we can now check out the cool stuffs that Angular 5 is bringing in the table. There are about 5 major features for Angular 5. They are 1. The Build Optimizer, 2. The Angular Universal State Transfer API with DOM support, 3. The new router lifecycle events, 4. The TypeScript 2.4 support, and lastly, the RxJS 5.5 support. Let's talk about these features one by one. The Build Optimizer is basically just a tool included in the Angular CLI for making the bundles much smaller using a method called tree shaking. The optimizer does this by marking certain points of your application that are eligible for tree shaking, and then it removes the part that your app doesn't use. The Build Optimizer also removes the Angular decorator in your Angular runtime code to boost the compilation time. Second, the Angular Universal State Transfer API is a new feature that enables you to easily share the state of your application between the server side and the client side of your app. The concept is basically this: it transfers the state of your application to your server to avoid repetitive HTTP call. A new item is also called Domino for the platform server to support more DOM or Document Object Model manipulations. Third, the new router lifecycle events will allow developers to track the cycle of the router from the auth guard to the route activation. This is helpful in showing the loading spinners while the component is loading. The new lifecycle events are guard check start, child activation start, guards check end, resolve start, resolve end, activation end, and many others. These are the new events that you can use to start or stop a spinner that you can use on your loading screen. Fourth, the Angular 5 can now use the new features in the latest TypeScript version 2.4. You can now use the dynamic import expression, string enumerations with initializers, and many others. And lastly, it has a new support to the new Reactive.js version 5.5 to be able to use a new feature called lettable operators. These operators will remove the hassles of code splitting and tree shaking. Aside from these features, there are a lot of improvements as well. Angular 5 now offers faster rebuilds, improved decorator support, the preserve whitespace metadata toggle, the ability to cache the Angular app in the browser, and many other changes on the built-in pipes, such as the date, currency, percent, and the internationalization pipes.